The New York Knicks are NBA Finals champions for the first time in 53 years. You see how crazy that sounds? And even New York Knicks fans can't even believe it. They up there in New York setting the city on fire. But this game definitely went how you would expect it to go, because every game has literally been the same, except for one. You know what I'm saying? Where the New York Knicks did come back. But this was probably the most predictable finals. One of the most predictable finals in NBA history. Just the fact that you can predict everything that has happened throughout every game. You know what I'm saying? Every game is just like the last. The Spurs will come out on fire, you know what I'm saying, going on a run, looking like they got everything figured out, clicking on all cylinders. But New York Knicks, towards the end of the second quarter, will make a run. The only difference between this game and all the rest of the games was the fact that New York kept it close throughout pretty much the whole game. You know what I'm saying? Even though the Spurs did go off on a run in the first quarter, the second quarter on, it was a close game. And Brunson, instead of taking over in the fourth quarter, he took over all four quarters. Cat really didn't do much. Nobody really did much on the New York Knicks side besides Brunson as far as offensively. Now defensively, it was a consistent showing for both sides. You know, both sides played pretty well defensively. It was just Brunson really taking over, and Wemby and Harper trying their best to keep, you know, the Spurs in the game. It was basically Brunson versus Wemby and Dylan Harper. And also for the Spurs, they just didn't get the performances they needed out of the players that they needed the most, you know what I'm saying, which was Fox and Stephon Castle. But most importantly, Fox, you know, because Fox was brought over to be that veteran type of guy that provides that leadership. And, you know what I'm saying, when everybody else doesn't have it going, you know what I'm saying, you expect Fox to have it going if nobody else has it going. You know, given that he's former clutch player of the year, you know what I'm saying, he was just supposed to provide that consistency offensively, and he just wasn't adding much, you know, offensively. The Spurs, besides the first quarter, their offense was somewhat struggling, you know. Like I said, outside of Brunson of this entire game, it seems like everybody was struggling offensively or just wasn't playing up to their potential offensively. And the biggest thing I think about the Spurs is the fact that they just don't have a clutch gene. What we've been saying about the Spurs all along, with them being young and inexperienced and not being able to identify the situation and just going out there and playing free, ultimately it ended up hurting them in the end. And their youngness, their inexperience, just, you saw plenty of times throughout this series of just blown lead after blown lead, turnover after turnover, long stretches with no points. Because even at the end of this game, Spurs had a chance to put it away. You know what I'm saying? They had a chance to not blow them out, you know what I'm saying, outside of the first quarter, but they had a chance to put the game away. You know what I'm saying? Within 5, 4, you know what I'm saying? Just stretch the game out. But once again, they missed crucial shots. You know what I'm saying? Wembanyama missing free throws. Just De'Aaron Fox not adding nothing offensively. Stephon Castle not making his first field goal into last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter, which was off a putback dunk. It was just, you ultimately saw the youngness in them and the inexperience, and ended up hurting them in the end. But you got to give credit to New York. The only thing I would say about, you know, this series is the fact that OG Anunoby deserved Finals MVP. Even though Brunson, he had a crazy closeout game to finish the series with 45 points, above 50% shooting, if I'm not mistaken. I think this is his first game shooting above 50% throughout the series. If it wasn't for OG Anunoby, this series would be leaning San Antonio's way. You know what I'm saying? If anything, San Antonio would be the one that's up 3-1 rather than the Knicks. You know what I'm saying? Because OG Anunoby, not only was he adding consistent offensive play, but he was also doing it on both sides of the ball. Defense, you know what I'm saying? You can say that his defense was just as good as his offense. And he was one of the leading scorers of this series. You know what I'm saying? Out of any player. And that's saying something because the man dropped 30 in the 2 games before this one. This was probably his only mediocre game of the series where you could say, you could have gotten more out of OG Anunoby. But besides that, the man was literally perfect on every aspect of the game. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, providing offensively, challenging Wemby, coming up with blocks, steals, hitting threes, you know what I'm saying? Just doing everything. Came up with some big time dunks, chase down block on Fox and all that. And even though the Spurs, blew leads in pretty much every game except for one, I still wouldn't panic if I was the Spurs. If anything, I think they should run it back. You know what I'm saying? Because, like I said, they have the recipe to win. I just think that the biggest thing was just the experience. They beat a team like OKC, it seemed like they were unanimous coming into the playoffs. They were unanimously looking to go to the finals. You know what I'm saying? It looked like it was going to be an easy road to the finals. And the Spurs managed to beat them. You know what I'm saying? Spurs beat Minnesota. Like, they had a tough road to the playoffs. But I think you combine the fatigue, especially later in games, and you also combine that with the inexperience, that's just not a good mix. Every time the Spurs, would start to get winded, New York would start to pick up. You know what I'm saying? They'll just start getting their second win. One team would get hot late, one team would get hot early. It was just flip-flop. But like I said, if I was a San Antonio Spurs, I wouldn't panic at all. San Antonio is going to be back. Because just the fact that they're so young, I do think that outside of Wemby, Castle, and Harper, they can definitely improve in some of those areas. And I also put Vassell in that conversation too, because Vassell was coming up with some, high energy plays. You could definitely tell he's the culture setter of the Spurs. He can defend multiple positions. It's just, so I also put him in that core. I think he's just one of those players where, he does a little bit of everything. You know what I'm saying? Provides defense, can shoot, 3-and-D player. And it ain't too many of those players in the league right now that can do it consistently. But I think ultimately, if you're the Spurs, you're in a great position as an organization. It's only Wemby's 3rd year, and he's already in the finals. You know what I'm saying? So you definitely have something to look forward to. And your top 3 players are all in their 1st, 2nd, 3rd year. So you definitely have time to figure it out. Even if next year is a down year, you still have next year. The biggest thing that I see stopping the Spurs, though, is the injuries. You know what I'm saying? Because injuries have proven to stop some of the greatest dynasties of all time. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's the only thing I really see. But as long as Wemby stays healthy and Castle stays healthy, this team is not going nowhere. For the Knicks, there is questions to be answered though, because I think the Knicks are in a weird situation where it's like they're getting older. You know what I'm saying? They're not in that range of just young, up-and-coming team. They're definitely getting older. It's a lot of money tied up within, Brunson and Cat and Mikal Bridges and Josh Hart and Anunoby. And throughout the season, they have struggled, through spurts of the season that make you question, is this team a legitimate contender, or are they benefiting from a easy pathway? You know what I'm saying? So I could definitely see them making moves, but I just don't know which direction they would go. Have some players that every team would want. There's nothing you can take away from them. They got it done. But the way they got it done wasn't a smooth path. They have shown inconsistencies that'll make you question, is this enough to be able to run it back and still have the same level of success? But, you know what I'm saying, we'll see. That's what the offseason's for, is to make decisions like that, trades, signings, whatever. But as long as you got Brunson and he's playing the way he's playing, the Knicks are going to be a competitive team for now and however long he wants them to be, because he's one of them. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got for this video. Appreciate y'all for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And the New York Knicks are NBA Finals champions. We'll see what the offseason holds. I'll catch you on the next one.